Lena, what influenced you?
So often I'm influenced by the written word, by poetry, by women's histories, by the mundane things in life, like nature that we sort of take for granted. But a bird flying around, or a cloud that passes over and throws a shadow on something and casts it dark where you've always seen it light. I sort of go into it, some painters might go into a landscape with that, but I go into a metaphor thing, thinking about light and dark, or night and day, and opposites influence me. Masculine and feminine, good and evil, those kinds of things, which often show up as a split canvas, sort of as a manuscript almost, in a way, where there's text and image. Those are two opposites because they use separate parts of the brain. So I'm influenced by just about everything I see, come in contact with, hear, smell, taste, or touch. That's so simple. Yet not. Yeah.
Lena, what are you passionate about now?
Oh, so much of what I'm doing right now is about women's histories. It's about this, like you see in the background, this shirt that I'm doing. It feels like my life's work has finally been revealed to me. So that is totally my passion. And so I am exploring the character and the substance of women, whether they be human or deities or mythological creatures, but feminine energy throughout history. And that's history, as in the story that men have made, that have forgotten or maligned the story of women. So I'm trying to show it through a shirt, which I think was inspired originally by a kimono, but now, because of living in Mexico, I seem to have transferred it into a huipil shape. But whether it's a kimono or a huipil, it's sort of that cloth that covers. And a huipil especially, it covers the breast, it covers the belly, it covers all of those things that are important to a woman. And so I thought, well, what better metaphor then, if I'm thinking about histories that we don't know about, or we maybe only know the dark side of, than maybe to use that cover up as the sort of shape that I'm working with, rather than a painting or a work on paper or something. So I'm using this huipil, and I'm working with this particular one that you see behind me, which I really love. It's one of the series, and the series is called Las Negadas, which is the negated or the maligned woman throughout history. And this one is for Coatlicue. And she was an Aztec goddess, and she gets a really bad rap because she's a little bit like the Kali goddess, where she's just like got skulls and swords and snakes, and everybody thinks, oh, she's a terrible person. But in the Aztec mythology, she's the mother of the sky, the sun, the moon, and all the stars. And so how bad could that be? She's the creator destroyer. And if you think about it, most women do have both sides, and men do as well. We all have a light and a dark, but my growing up in convent school, I was taught to only show the light, only be good. And my dark side was, of course, always suppressed. Well, I had to go to confession to tell that I teased my sisters or whatever. And all women throughout history, if they had something negative, they were not put in the history books for what they were. La Malinche, for example, she has a very bad reputation here in Mexico because she was such a traitor, and Uncle Tom to her people. But she is in fact the mother of this race, the mother, everyone's mother, because she had no choice to begin with. I mean, she was a slave, she was sold. She happened to be brilliant and spoke every language that Cortez needed, so he says, come on, you're going with me. She became his concubine, his travel companion, and was able to help him go in and pretty much conquer all of this land that we're on. And people think, well, if it hadn't been for her, of course, we wouldn't be a conquered people. But the we that we speak about are the mestizos. There's no pure race anymore. I mean, it's the Spanish blood mixed with the Indian blood, and she is the mother of that. So I think you have to honor that. And I'm doing shirts for people like Salome, who biblically has this bad girl, but there is another side to her story as well. So that's what I'm doing. I'm digging, and it takes me a lot of passion to keep up with it because I have to go into the research. Thank goddess for the internet these days, because you can find anything you want. We're sort of like, literally challenged here as far as finding books in English, but I can find almost everything I want, and then I have to just research about these women. And then I have to start building, or I get to start building this concept of what would represent them. Not what they wore. I mean, I won't do a shirt for Frida Kahlo because she's famous and she knew what she wore. I wouldn't compete with that. But I get to sort of choose what could fit on them now, and it's like really exciting. And it brings women's histories to the forefront that we didn't get to study about or know about. And I'm trying to sort of like start with Mexico, but go through the cultures and find who's been forgotten, who's been maligned, and I think it's going to be a fun educational tool. I did a short for Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz that is on the 200 peso bill here in Mexico, and I was totally inspired by just looking at this peso one day and going, they have a woman on their money. I wonder who she is. Started doing the research and finding out she was this brilliant philosopher, a musician, an artist, a genius. Like everything across the board, scientist. At the time of the Inquisition, she was actually a nun by default, because she had no choice. If you wanted in the 17th century to be educated, you entered a convent. That's where your studies were. But she became too brilliant, too famous, and was asked to give up, or really forced to give up, every passion, every earthly passion, and devote her entire life to Jesus. And, when she had to sign her renunciation, she had to really admit to herself and to the Inquisition panel that she had been living the religious life without religion. Well, off with your head. What do you do, She could either give it up or go be burned at the stake. Well, what would you choose? I wouldn't have the nerve to say, oh, just burn me. I don't think so, But little by little, the Archbishop at the time was able to sort of cover up her story. His one goal in life was to let her story be forgotten. And so then through Octavio Paz and a lot of other writers, we now have bits of information about her, and her poems have survived because the woman that she was very close with, the Vicereine, was able to secure her manuscripts, bundle them up and take them to Europe and keep having them published. But of course it was the publications, that got her into so much trouble. Like, oh, you're too famous, you can't be doing this. You should be writing holy scripture, holy words, not secular words. So it's that kind of woman that really turns me on because she had a passion for life. She was amazingly brilliant and full of life, and yet she had to sign a promise that if she could study within this cloister, she would never leave it. She had a bar between anyone she was able to speak with, that came to visit her. The only time in all of the years that she was cloistered, the only time she was allowed to leave Mexico City in her little cell was when her mother was dying, and she was allowed to go to her side. But other than that, she could walk out in the courtyard if she was busy flagellating herself, but she couldn't walk the streets of Mexico City. So I think, wow, I gotta pay her back. She did a lot of good, really fine work. So I've built a whole installation around her huipil, which is made out of pages of one of her poetry books rather than canvas and, paint and all of that. So each shirt is very, very different. Each shirt really speaks of the substance of the woman and all the things that she did and knew that got her into so much trouble that she had to be forgotten. So that's kind of my passion as it is.